This is John Levison reporting for Run247.com, and we're at the London Marathon Expo. I'm extremely pleased to be joined by Sandra Bowers. Sandra is an ultra-distance runner, so the race this weekend would be a little bit short for her. She does something quite a few times longer than this, actually. We're going to have a chat to Sandra now about her running history and find out some really interesting stuff about Sandra. So many thanks for joining us, Sandra.
Nice to be here.
Tell us about a little bit how you got into running, because I understand there's actually quite an interesting story that at one point you shouldn't actually be running. You had a very dodgy ankle, but you managed to recover from that. So just tell us how you actually started running and what that history is.
Well, as a youngster, I had an accident with my ankle that caused me a great deal of pain throughout my childhood and then young adulthood. I had been to see surgeons a couple of times. They'd looked at it and basically said that's the best it's ever going to get. And then when I moved down south in my late 20s, I saw a different consultant who was an ankle and foot specialist, and he arranged to get an MRI scan on it and actually discovered that it was a very serious injury and there was something he could do about it. So he put me in for surgery, and at the time he did say, look, you have a bad ankle here. There is severe avascular necrosis of the ankle joint, which is basically when the injury had happened, it cut off the blood supply and the ankle had rotted away. And as a result, everything was in a pretty bad way down there.
So the ankle was sort of, crumbling apart or just rotting away, as you say?
Yes, basically, completely and utterly, and it was only going to get progressively worse. So his plan with the surgery was to remove all the diseased bone, to drill through generating scar tissue, which would in effect act as cartilage and would give me a workable ankle, well, not perfect, but a workable ankle. And then at a later date he would do reconstructive surgery on the ligaments. So went in and had the surgery, and he did warn me at the time, look, you'll never run again. We can give you an ankle that'll make you walk and you won't be a cripple, but you will not run again.
So what was had you done much running at that point, or was it sort of social running, or were you competitive, or what stage were you at in your sort of running history?
At that point, I was pleasure running with my dogs, but not doing anything serious, no racing, no competing, just enjoying being out in the fresh air. In my younger days before the actual accident, I was a keen runner and a member of a local athletics club, but once the accident happened, I gave that all up.
Yeah. So you now got told that you're probably never going to run again, very dodgy ankle. The next thing you did was run a marathon. So how do we get from that to running a marathon?
Well, I still remember the moment very clearly. I was lying in the hospital bed, sort of absorbing this, and I thought, you know what? No, I don't like being told what I can't do something. I do like a challenge, and I thought before I go, I'm going to run the London Marathon. That's what I'm going to do. Just one time. And so I set myself the target of trying to train and qualify to run in the London Marathon.
Yeah. And how did that go? And what was the sort of length of time between being in hospital bed and running a marathon? And how did the race go for you?
The following year, I ran a marathon. I ran the New Forest Marathon in order to get a good for each time, so that I knew I would get a guaranteed entry in London, which I did. And then just before I was due to run London for the very first time, I had to have a second surgery on my ankle, so I'd already qualified and had the time. And it was the end of February I had that second surgery, so it was very, very tight recovering from that and then running in April at the London Marathon. Yeah. But I did do it.
So you did that. So that was going to be I wanted to do the London Marathon, dodgy ankle, I've done it, go back to being couch potato, but from there you ended up doing ultra running. So
yeah, it didn't
what happened along the way? Where did the brain get a bit frazzled and you sort of went off in a completely different direction?
Well, I found that running was it was giving me something I never really had from a sort of confidence and self-esteem perspective, and the dogs were absolutely loving it, and the ankle wasn't causing me major problems, it was coping with it. Yeah. And I was increasing my mileage, and it felt good. And when the surgeon spoke to me quite a while after I'd had the surgery and he took further scans on it, he was absolutely blown away with what had actually happened. My body was basically coping with it and had found a way to adapt. And so ever since then, he's actually been very supportive and said, I'm not making it any worse, I'm not doing it any harm. So, I'm still on borrowed time, but keep on going. and I sort of thought, right, okay, let's make the most of it. It's not going to last forever, but let's see what I can do. And running further seemed to work better for me than running faster. So I ran my first ultra, loved it, and then got sent an invitation letter. Well, it was an application to enter 100k, and I thought, I can give that a go, and ran that, and was good enough to run for Scotland the following year. And it's sort of just gone from there.
So it really is from one end of the spectrum to the other. One of the things you briefly mentioned there was your dogs. Now we've got to talk about your dogs because they're a bit of the superstars in themselves, and actually your training partners. So tell us about the dogs and the training and what part the dogs play in that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are absolutely awesome training partners. They are, I mean, as athletes, I don't think you can beat an animal like the Siberian Huskies. So they're all 4 Siberian Huskies, all different ages, so different abilities, different running I'll do with them. I get up very early in the morning because I have to be careful with temperature, obviously, in the heat of the day you can't run them, and just go out running for miles and miles. And they know how to pace themselves. They just run in front of me and just keep going and going, and I tag along. I've got company. Being a sort of a lone female could be a little bit threatening when you're out at silly times in the morning, but I've got my dogs for company, and I don't have to worry about that. And I also find that if I do speed work with them, it works. If I was just to go out and try and run really, really quickly, I'm quite lazy and I would hold back and say, no, it's comfortable if I just jog along. But if I harness them up and say, right, let's really go for it, they go quicker, I go quicker, and we end up doing a speed session.
You're telling me beforehand that you went from the marathon, did your first ultra, got an invite, and then it did 100k and a few of those. But you've got some fairly big plans now to really put that in the shade and go for a lot longer. So tell us about what's on the menu for you and what's your next big event that you're looking forward to.
Yes, well, as I said, I do like a bit of a challenge, and I'm going to attempt my first ever 24-hour event, which is basically when I will run as far as I can in a 24-hour period. I've thought about this for a number of years, bearing in mind that, as I've gone further and further, I've adapted well to it. I am being tempted this year in making my debut because there is a Commonwealth Championship in Wales in September, and I would love to qualify and represent Scotland in that event, which is a 24-hour event. And so I've decided in May I'm going to go to Switzerland and I'm going to attempt to do that, and run the equivalent of 5 and just under 5, between 4 and 5 marathons in one day. So it's a big ask.
Obviously it's a huge ask. You're here this weekend at the Marathon Expo. Are you going to be running the marathon this week? Is this part of your training, or is there other reasons for being here?
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be running this year. It was a decision I made when I looked at my training and about what my plans were going to be for this year. At the moment, I'm regretting it because I want to be out there, because London is
got all the
a
excitement
special
here
marathon.
And all the people that are around, and
and it's fantastic to be a part of this marathon. Is just awesome. But I'll save that for next year. So I'm up supporting my other half, Ian. He will be running tomorrow.
Ian's just off camera there.
Yes.
He's the nervous-looking one.
And so I'll enjoy watching it for the first time in many years. I'm just going to savour the occasion.
Well, good. Well, many thanks for that, Sandra. It's a fantastic story. Real inspiration there for anybody that's been told they can't run again. Sandra's just proved that not only can you potentially run again, you can run for a very lot of miles. 24-hour race plans. Check out her. You've got a website, I believe, where we can find a bit more about you and your Huskies. Is that right? Or can we find out more? Or?
Yes, the website is being...
Was it in progress
It's in progress at the moment, yes. But the Huskies actually have a Huskies running Facebook page where all the adventures and all the running, and I tend to tag on to that as well.
Fantastic. So have a look out for that. The Huskies running on Facebook. You'll be able to find out more about these famous dogs and find out more about Sandra. And we wish you all the best for the races, and hope you do manage to make that Scotland team for later in the year.
Thank you very much.